Hello, welcome back. For this segment, we are going to talk about cognitive load. And the question is, how do you design your course with cognitive load in mind? Angie, let's start with you.
I think when you look at cognitive load theory and this idea that when students are transferring what they're learning to long-term memory, they really need to be able to organize it into this familiar structure, into this schema. I think we have to be considering that from the outset of designing our course, because as much as we may find some really great tools and some really great resources, if our students are going to expend a lot of energy just trying to figure out those tools, then they're going to miss the cognitive energy they need to put into actually learning the content. So for me, when I'm choosing tools as part of that research process, I'm always looking for tools that will be pretty easy for them to navigate, because the focus is not on the tool. The focus is what they're learning with the tool.
Emery?
Yeah, when I think about cognitive load, I think about it in terms of different levels. And, I don't want every single week to be at the same level. I mean, you start off in an introductory section and you need to get up to speed. It's just like if you're exercising or something, you don't go out and run 3 miles, start at the same speed and go the whole way through. You're going to do a little warm up to get ready to go. You're going to do it. You might pull back a little bit halfway through and then plunge back in again for the final segment of it. And I want to do that in the same way in the course. The other thing that I do here when I think about cognitive load is I think about it from game design theory. And in game design theory, what you do is you're not reducing cognitive load, you're actually focusing it. And when successful games always do that, and that you even take something like a simple game like Angry Birds or something, you just become completely focused on that one part of it. And I look at every single module and go, are we focusing? Are all the resources, all the activities, all the assessments focused on that one segment of the course so that students aren't, as Angie said, getting all over the place, that they have that narrow focus so that they can actually concentrate on it and do well.
I think about it almost the same way that you guys both described it in terms of, I don't want them overly cautious of tools. I don't want them to spend more time thinking about the tool than thinking about what they're trying to learn. I think it is about pacing too. It's really how do you start them off to get them on the right track? And then how do you increase that as you keep going through the course? So I think I almost front load certain pieces that I need them to know right away. It's like that groundwork. So that way I can scaffold and build from there and then know that it's kind of like a journey, knowing that day one, you're going to learn this, but in day, you know, or week, let's say week 7, because we're a 7.5 week course, and week 7, you're now going to think about this a little bit differently than you thought about the first day. You're going to build, because we've walked you through kind of a systematic understanding of the course, but we've also walked you through different content levels. So now I can say, all right, do this and do that, and it's not going to overwhelm you because you've already walked through certain phases of that. So I think about it in terms of scaffolding. I like the thought of game design too, and thinking about how do we get them really immersed. But I think on day one you're thinking about certain things, but the last day of the course, last week of the course, you're trying to tie all that together, and how does that all work together? And in those weeks in between, how do you get your students to where you want them to be, but not overwhelming them? I think it's also a good point to, as the course is wrapping up, talk to your students, ask them about, where did they feel overwhelmed? Where did they feel that the tools got in the way of their learning? And even monitoring the tools. I know in this semester I'm working on a new course, and there's a tool that I'm using that's really in the way. It's, people are struggling. They're not talking about what they're doing with the tool. They're talking about the tool. And I'm like, okay, we're missing the point with this one because they're not discussing what they should be discussing. They're discussing the tool. It's not a tools class. So I think that's where you've got to kind of pull back and monitor, and make some adjustments. Other thoughts?
I just think
Yeah.
this reinforces the idea that we begin with that end in mind, so that if we have this ultimate performance that we want from our students by the end of the semester, just breaking it down and as you both mentioned, introducing pieces at the right time to build them to that level.
It's a great way to think about it. Other thoughts?
Yeah, and just having those reflective moments in the course, I think, are very important where you pull back a little bit because it's not when you're not stopping the learning, you're just giving them a moment to reflect on it and push forward to the next level. And my students always say they need that because I give them so much material and they just need time to just digest it and then say, now I can move on to the next step.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.